Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. At the Animal Alliance, we're working towards a future where no pet is euthanized due to overpopulation. Our strategy is simple: spay and neuter. Visit theanimalalliance.org to learn how you can support this cause. Your help can save lives and make a significant impact. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today we have another friend. He was on a few episodes back and I liked it so much. I was like, man, I want him back and I want him to talk more about his book. And more importantly, share his expertise in a way that you can watch it happen and watch it work. So I'm going to bring him a scenario of something that I'm passionate about, that I'm influencing and changing in the world right now, or I'm doing my darndest to. And then we're going to have a discussion about how does that, what he shared in his book called The R Factor. It's now on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. So if you want to listen to it, go listen to it. I'm a listener. I'm so excited to listen to the full thing. But I want him to be able to share that with you guys to think, okay, how could, if he was talking about my business and helping me, how could Brian help me? Because he also has a consulting firm. He also has other things that he's doing. He's not just an author. He is a man with lots of experience, and he became an author to share that experience with you. And oftentimes books are wonderful, but maybe it's just me. I love hand holding. I'm like, I'll hold my hand, show me how to do this. I could read a book a million times, but I also like the hand holding because I've written a book and I understand that it's hard to convey everything and all the nuances in a book. Generally, books are a generalization because they have to be of a situation, but there's still a lot of situations that come up that are like, oh, well, we actually need to create a 5 or 6 of these principles and meld them into one to solve this problem, not like 5 segregated principles. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Brian, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has life been since we last chatted?
I tell you, it's been, that's been about a month ago, I think, since you are on. It has been kind of nonstop. And in fact, I went on about a 21-day straight business trip between Florida, DC, Hawaii, and then back to DC, and then back to Florida. So it has been a busy month of May.
Yeah, and you're used to doing book tours. I should say used to. You've done book tours. And so some of the things that I'm going to share or about what I'm doing may be similar to that. Some may be different. But I'm really, we're going to get into the topic here and discuss this. One of the things that I'm focused on right now is I want to change, revolutionize, influence how the public speaking industry operates and thus the event speaking, not the whole industry, but certain subsections of the industry. So you may have already witnessed this. You may be experiencing this in different areas, but when somebody wants to put on an event, generally they're told to brand the event and then create this movement around the event and then bring people to the event. And then what happens is a company is formed. Oftentimes, like this is the back end of the event. Oftentimes there's an LLC formed for any litigation purposes. There's an LLC formed and the owner or the main person in the company decides, hey, we're going to do this. All the money's going to flow somewhere. We're going to charge for the event. We're going to charge speakers. And then when they go to get speakers, the speakers feel like they are speaking at somebody else's event. So the event is postured and presented like, hey, Brian, do you want to come speak at our event? And immediately, what am I doing? I'm setting Brian up to be in a frame or a perspective that he is a guest, even if he's paying, he is a guest speaker at my event. So what's the downfall to this? From like, we're talking about the R factor, and the subtitle of this book is How to Scale Your Business Through Managing Relationships. This is why I wanted to have this conversation with Brian.
Sure.
Okay. So immediately I've now demoted him from a position of authority because he's at my event. So he's now lower on the authority structure than me because it's my event. I'm branded. I own the LLC. He's coming in as a guest. He's paying to be there often in the speaking industry, which I'm totally on board for. I don't mind paying to speak, paid for lots of speaking events. The challenge is that now he has, if I as the event organizer say, hey, you need to get 5 to 10 people or 20 people or 30 people to the event, now it seems more like a transactional condition of his being part of the event rather than him wanting to get 5 people to the event. And it's because he's not in control of anything other than I'm going to show up and speak. Maybe he only shows up to speak and he's not there for the full event. Maybe he attends the full event, but he sits in the back room because he's like, I'm just here to speak. I'm just a speaker. I'm a guest speaker, right? So maybe he's positioned himself in a mindset wise that he's not fully invested. He's not there to learn. He's not there to be part of or contribute. He's there to speak. And there's a lot of people in the industry who they see the Ed Milet, they see the Tony Robbins, the Robert Kiyosaki, whatever it is. Like they see these speakers and they think, oh man, I want to be like that. So they start charging more. They stop paying and they start charging. And they start showing up how they think that those people show up or how those people actually show up. And the challenge is those people who have gotten to that level, their name actually can sell tickets most of the time. But if you're trying to break into that, then a lot of people will, what do they say? What's that term? Fake it till you make it. A lot of people will fake it at that level before their name can sell tickets. And the issue is they're no longer invested in selling tickets to the event because they paid to be there or they demanded a paycheck. And so they're like, oh, they're paying me. I don't need to do anything. The room's going to be full when I show up and I can deliver my message because I'm a god. And think of the relationship breakdown as an event organizer. If the person who's showing up to speak thinks that they're so good that they had to be paid to be there, what kind of relationship is that person going to build with the audience if they think they're there to give a canned speech rather than create transformation and really be involved and connected with the people, the audience? Right? So these are some of the issues. I'm curious, Brian, what's been your experience so far? Before I go into my solution, what is your experience either in your own speaking experiences or what I'm describing from a business perspective? What are some of these issues that you're seeing, principles from your book that apply to or could resolve some of these concerns?
Wow. That was a lot. So let's break it down.
There's a lot more, Brian, just so you know, there's a lot more.
Okay. So there's definitely, in the speaking, there's maybe 3 different ways I'd look at it, right? One is, like you said, if you're paying to be there, you're one, building your reputation. The second part to that is if you're paying to be there, then you should also want to listen to the other people that are there to see what you can glean, not just from the speaking, but from the other transactional relationships that you can build. When I go to an event, I'm looking more, even if I've paid, I'm looking at who might be a business partner, who might instill some knowledge upon me that I didn't know, what is being talked about that I need for professional development. So therefore, you're really, if you pay to speak and you're there for your own professional development, you're really are getting a double value out of that. So if I've paid to speak, I've had events where I spoke for free, but they covered my me and my staff's ticket events and our lodging. So and on the virtual ones, sometimes I've had them say, okay, can you bring people, where they're trying to build a bigger online presence. So I think there is a mix there, Sam, across the industry. But for a new speaker, I get people to pay me to show up to talk to them about their business in the speaking industry. I speak now, but I'm not obviously a Tony Robbins or a Robert Kiyosaki or whatever now. Now, maybe in the future that could be the goal, but currently right now, every time I speak, I really look at it as an opportunity to expand my knowledge, to impart my knowledge, and to kind of get a double value out of every time I get to speak.
Okay. So, notice he's talking about he's coming to everything. This is the breakdown that I specifically want to highlight, because almost everything he said is all about him. And that's, again, I'm not, this is not an accusation, Brian. This is the industry and how most people have been taught to think of this. And this is what I want to change in the industry, because I'm just as vain as anybody else. Okay. So believe me, my self-interest to change this in the world is motivated by what I want out of life. Okay. So like, I'm not any different than Brian or anybody else. Like, I could say everything in I terms, and I probably will, just so you guys understand it. But at the end of the day, the issue that I'm trying to address is that people are going to an event thinking in I terms, and they're thinking in I singular. At what level do you want to be benefited? So I had somebody call me the other day and said, "Hey, it sounds like you're really winning at an event, because I just, in one event, I'm able to close anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 worth of business. So like, how do you do that?" And it's like, look, I could have Brian pay me to come speak at an event. I could pay to go speak at Brian's event. But now we've inserted money into the transaction. And oftentimes when you pay or are paid to speak, then you don't get to sell your products. So you don't really get to make an offer if you're being paid to speak sometimes. Sometimes you can work it in there, but a lot of times if you're being paid to speak, you're there to provide information, and that's your transaction. So would you rather get paid $20,000 to $25,000 or $2,000 or your lodging to come and speak, but then you don't get to market anything? And then sometimes if you do market something, you have to pay a percentage of your sales to the event organizer. Okay, so these are all different breakdowns in the public speaking world, and different ways it gets done. But I would much rather keep money out of this. This is an axiom I live by. People are more flippant with their money than they are with their reputation. Okay, I use the word reputation, and Brian uses the word relationship, right? You can call it whatever you want. People are more flippant with their with their money than they are their reputation. So what do I really want from somebody? Do I want Brian's money, or do I want his reputation? Right? I want his reputation. I want his relationship more than I want his money. Because if Brian and I have a good relationship and he trusts me, then what's he going to do? He's going to introduce people to me. And if he introduces people to me and he feels comfortable introducing people to me, then I'm very likely going to make way more money helping and serving his friends than he was ever going to pay me for showing up.
I agree with that.
Okay. And so this is where the relationship, scaling your business through relationships really matters. Is when public speakers come, they think, well, I paid, so why do I also have to get speakers there? Or why do I also have to get, I'm already paying for the event. Why do I also need to get 10 people there? I want to show up. I want to learn from other people. These are Brian's words now. I want to learn from other people. I want to see who I can connect with. But what he isn't talking about is I want to bring 10 of my coolest friends that also could value from this experience. And I bet my friends could benefit from the connections that I'm going to make there. And we've all been to events where we're like, oh man, I need to introduce you to my friend. And then you go about your life, you get busy, and that introduction never happens because they weren't right there with you. Yeah. And most of Brian's friends, most of Brian's friends are never going to pay Brian because they know him too much. So even if they do exactly what Brian does, they're never going to pay Brian. Not like 30% of them will, but 70% will never pay Brian. But Brian might know somebody who does exactly what he does, and they would pay him, pay the other person to help them with what Brian could have helped them with. And so Brian has friends that are never going to benefit or get the help they need because they aren't going to listen to him. But if he introduced them to the right person, they would get the help they needed. Yeah, he wouldn't make the money, but he would have then instilled a relationship of trust, and that other friend could also introduce their 70% of people who will never pay them to Brian. Join the Animal Alliance in our mission to end the needless euthanasia of cats and dogs. Our spay and neuter programs are saving lives every day, but we need your help. Visit theanimalalliance.org to donate, volunteer, or learn more. Together, we can create a brighter future for our furry friends.
It's a completely different way of looking at it. Absolutely.
So how does, from your book of relationship, when you're thinking about like how to scale your business through relationships, how does that change the relationship of all the other speakers, your relationship in your mind, how you orient yourself with the event organizer and with the other speakers and with yourself showing up to an event?
So basically, I'm going to back up to the I part, right? So the reason a lot of people look at it as I is if you're a speaker, if you have a business, you're looking for the return on investment immediately for the event, right? So you have to, in your case, you're speaking quite a bit, so you figured out how the ROI works. A lot of new speakers haven't. So they're trying to figure out how to make the investment minimal as can be, because you still got to invest in yourself, you got to invest in the events and those kind of things, so that you can start realizing how to make an ROI. If you fast forward to where you're trying to take the industry with your thought process, makes much more sense to scale through the network. Because if 10 of us get together and 10 of us bring 5 people, now we have 50 people there, and there's a lot more synergy. From the event you and I were at together, I've had 4 different leads from that organization, to where one has led me to where that's where I'm speaking in Greece in November. Was a lead I got from the event we were at. I think some of that too is just the business relationships that you get together. So I wasn't a speaker, I was an attendee, but as an attendee listening, I was listening to the speakers, and there's been 3 or 4 of the speakers there that have benefited from me being there, because I have, as you said, now I'm either looking at their service or I've referred their service to someone. And so I think that is definitely a way to look at it. Matter of fact, when I come back out to my next event with you, I'm bringing one of my business partners with me so that she can grasp that, and the 2 of us can look at some of the business structures that are happening in these type of events, as we're looking at, one, growing our speaking and consulting side of the business, but also 2, there are a lot of things you learn through these events that affect every one of your businesses, right? It may be a real estate relationship, it may be a legal relationship, it may be a banking or a finance relationship, right? So I think you definitely have to go into it with an open mind and look at, because I was invited by a friend to the event you and I were together at. And the intent of that for me, that was the first time I had been to an event like that. We're not spoken previously. It was much more of a platform, larger event type issue, where I was being brought as a subject matter expert to talk about a topic. So truly a gun for hire consultant type piece. Sell your book. If people contact you about the consulting, that's great, but it was much more about me as an educational instructor than it was business networking. So in that case, but on those kind of stages, I bring my staff to those events to help me with people that come up and need to talk to me, or they want to set up time with me individually. So therefore, even though I may speak for free or have a small stipend for coming or whatever it is, I do treat it as a true networking event. And normally, even at those kind of events, there's usually another speaker that I or someone in my team, I'm trying to get us to learn something to make us better. So I think it's really in the network, or in the, I'll call it, business is about return on investment. So I think it's all in how you do your return on investment. Like one of the, how do we get you to speak? I said, well, that's okay. There's one speaker you've got. I want to hear him. And me coming to speak's worth me sitting with him and talking to him for an hour. So I definitely think there's a open communication in the speaking industry that it's not about the speaker making, like you said, $2,000 to $20,000, because you can make much more than that in one good deal.
Much more. And so this is the issue that most events have. There's lots of people who want to put on events, but they don't know how to get people to the event.
Right.
They don't know how to fill the event. And a large part of not knowing how to fill the event is they're trying to make it their event and invite people to speak at their event, which means whose job is it? And I actually agree with the people who feel this way. Whose job, if I'm going to make an event about Sam and I want everybody to come listen to Sam, and then I'm going to bring other people just for the sake of having other people there, then sure, I should probably get my own people there too. I should fill the event, and then I'm inviting them to hear from. And so there's a time and a place for that. But I think that it's polluting the environment to where people are no longer acting with responsibility or accountability. So the mindset that I'm shifting or trying to help people shift, and you said it, well, what's the ROI? So one, how do we communicate the ROI to somebody in the beginning of an event? That's number one. Number two, how do we make it a minimal investment? Because there's a lot of people who want to speak, but then the speaking opportunities, hey, you got to pay $300, $500, $700, $1,000, $1,500, $20,000, whatever, to get on stage. I paid a lot of money. Most I've ever paid was $10,000, but I paid $10,000 to speak, right? And it was good. It wasn't a bad deal. I got networking. I got a booth. I got branding and presentation and notoriety to speak on the same stage as other people. And there's other purposes for it, but the relationship wasn't there. The relationship between the audience and the product provider, myself, didn't get built, because when you're speaking to so many people, you don't build the same relationship and close as much business. Now, sometimes that's not what you want. So you don't want more clients. Sometimes you just want notoriety and fame, which is not a bad thing. I'm not slamming that at all, right? It depends on what your purpose is. But I also want to help people be able to start an event quickly. So before this call, I was like, hey, Brian, when are you speaking? He's got one speaking engagement for the next 6 months. I feel like every month or so. But what, and then I asked him, have you put on your own events? Oh, some people have been talking about it. So what if it was this easy for Brian to put on an event? But it's not Brian's event. This is the key part. Rather than creating an event series of Brian's events, so then the first one, people are interested to come see what Brian has to say. The second one, he has to go find new people who are still interested in what he has to say. Eventually, his known market, he caps out. Everybody he knows that he does events, and nobody else wants to come to them unless he twists their arm, bribes them, whatever, right? So then eventually he has to go find other people, other names to bring people to his events. But at this point, now they're bringing people to his event rather than bringing people to their event. So you're building something that you can't sustain. You're building a system that's unsustainable. Okay. Tony Robbins, I would say, is the only person that I know of that consistently figured out how to get people to his events. He's the only one that I know of. And I'm open to be wrong on this, but like most other like Ed Milet is a good example. Ed Milet occasionally, when he first started, did his own events, but at this point, he just speaks at other people's events. He borrows other people's crowds. He doesn't put on his own events.
No, I think you're right. Tony, and then I'd say the other guy's probably Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone,
he had to evolve his 10X to a lot of other types of events to keep people interested. 10X wasn't like you don't hear about 10X like this feverish thing everybody wants to go to it. You did for the first 3 or 4 years, but now it's just another event that happens in Vegas.
Right.
And same thing with all of these events. And it's not a bad thing, okay? I'm not at all saying it's a bad thing. It's just, where do you want to be and what level are you at? So here's the deal. What if you created your own event, Brian, and you went and got 5 people from different industries, just like you mentioned, or 10 people, and all of you brought 5 to 10 people. But what's key here is that every one of you believe that it's your event.
So it's almost like a true networking event.
But it's not networking. I mean, it could be networking, but it's actually structured just like a normal event. There's speakers. There's an agenda. It's not like just open networking. It's a collaboration event. Rather than a networking event, it's a collaborative event. where the branding is something that's decided by everybody. The title of the event is something that's decided by everybody. All the speakers, they all pay the same ticket price to speak, the same as what anybody else is speaking. So if it's a free event, then it's a free event. Maybe all the speakers have to say, okay, it costs this much for a building, costs this much for this. So we're all going to split that evenly. Nobody's making money on the event. Right? But everybody, all the speakers, they all believe if it's to be, it's up to me. They all go into it thinking, I'm here to fill the event because I want people in the seats.
Right.
Okay. I can't rely on Brian to fill the event if I'm a guest, if I'm a speaker, because Brian may not have people, he may not want people to listen to him speak. So I can't rely on him. Even if he was the one who approached me about being a speaker there, I've got to treat this event as if they're coming to see Sam. They're not coming to see Brian. Right. So I'm working and filling the event for people that I think are going to come see me. And if Brian's doing that and Susie's doing that and Joseph's doing that, and every one of these speakers are all filling the event because it's their event rather than I'm speaking at somebody else's event, how does that change the energy and the relationships of the people in the room?
That's a good question, Sam. I think it changed in two ways. One, it puts an onus or a peer pressure on each speaker to provide their 5 or 10 people because it is mutually branded, right? And it also behooves you to find 5 or 10 or whatever the number is of people that would be interested in the topics that are going to be discussed. So therefore, if you came together and you had you had a finance person and a real estate person and a business consultant and an attorney, some type of a business style structure. If it's real estate, you might want to have, a title company or a, mortgage lender or whatever. But anyway, if you could find the 5 people to come speak together that are synergistic to each other's business already, and they brought those people, I think you definitely have an opportunity there for additional coaching, additional mentorship, additional monitoring. Much like one of the things we're doing, we have a network here in Tampa, and we get together at no cost to anybody, but it's because we can pool real estate ideas. So the return on investment is not in the event. It's in the opportunity of being at the event because of the real estate opportunities that come to the event.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So you're speaking the very similar, right? A concept here that you're bringing several business people together to bring a synergistic business philosophy of some type together, which then automatically feeds itself to relationships and feeds itself to teaming and doing other things.
Right.
So it definitely is a different philosophy. So I would say in that case, that's definitely would look at how because you could do those every quarter easy because you can bring in 50 people, different people every quarter, and the network just continues to grow.
So Brian, you could do them once a quarter. This is where I'm 1000%. If there's anybody who has a testimonial of gaining clients through live events, it's this guy right here sitting here. I absolutely believe in this with everything. Okay. It's one of the best ways I've ever grown my business and seen other people grow their business. But you can, if I'm going up against Brian's doing it once a quarter, and I have 10 events scheduled in the next 6 weeks.
Wow.
Who's even remotely going to win? Like there's no, and win, not just financially, because that's not even the issue, but experience wise.
Right.
Who has more relationships? Right. So the idea of scaling, again, I love it, scaling through relationships, but there's a chapter in his book. I don't know what the actual chapter is called. Chapter 4. It's called the Goal Trilogy, but he has a graph in his book and talks about the vision and overview. And then he has a spot for the core values. Then he has a spot for the core focus, the 5-year target, the marketing strategy, and the 3-year picture. Okay. The only 2 parts of this that I would change, because this is what's crazy. He's already developed this system and he already knows the system of like how to do this. in other areas of Brian's business, but how does he then apply this to the event business, his event business? Because if he thinks of his life as an event business, then he starts to put on his own event. And rather than doing one every quarter, he's doing one every week. And he's doing one every week he's the common thread through all of them, but each event has 5 different people that he's doing the event with. And if each event is equally, the stress of the event is equally distributed between those 6 people, graphics, websites, marketing, everybody's only expected to get 5 people to the event. And he's doing one event on relationships, one event on company culture, one event on finance, one event on government contracting, one event on military, whatever. Could he benefit, Brian? Could you benefit all of those areas I just said?
Absolutely.
Could you add value to people's lives in all of those areas?
Yeah.
Would you be able to get different people, knowing your network, knowing who you know, different people to each of those 5 different areas? You wouldn't invite the military contractor probably to the company culture event. Maybe you would, but probably not.
I think, yeah. Well, actually, you could. If they're another contractor, they're going to be looking at differences in cultures too.
Sure.
Because sometimes I think I even talk about that in the book about the stagnant growth piece. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the culture of the business. It's right. Because the owner doesn't understand when to get out of the way to let the business take off. Mm-hmm. So there could be a stagnant culture in the business that's causing the people to restrain from growth because sure. they just come in to do their job. A stunted growth mentality. Yeah. And
so let's say, because I'm doing one, it's a relationship conference. Let's say you bring this military contractor who's trying to manage like military contract relationships and stuff. And he comes to a relationship conference, gets invited to a relationship conference where we're talking about the relationship with money, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your ego, your relationship with your health, and prenups and conflict resolution. Okay. Now he's probably going to benefit from 2 or 3 of those. He's probably going to benefit from all of them, but some of them are like, why? I'm a government contractor. Why would I go talk about my ego? Why would I go talk about prenups? Like, what do I need to know about prenups, right? And here's the thing. This is where we get this cross-pollination of people who never thought they needed to know something, and they're in a room and they learn something. And so he could get these 5 different events in June or July, whatever. He could schedule them rather than once a quarter, once a week. And he knows 25 people that are different people that would be interested in different topics. And he could get 5 people to each of those events. And if everybody else gets 5 people to those events, now you have 5 different rooms with 30 people in each, 30 to 60 people in each. Now he grew his market by 25 because 5 of those people were his. So he grew his market by 25 times 5. Now he's 125 people who he's had an intimate relationship. He got to spend 3 or 4 hours with them. He got to schedule an appointment with them or at least have the shot at it. And now he's in a personal conversation with 10 to 20 people that he never thought he was going to help and they didn't know of him. But because, and also the 5 people he brought are in those same conversations with somebody else. The Animal Alliance is dedicated to ending the cycle of pet overpopulation and euthanasia. Through our spay and neuter initiatives, we make a difference. You can be part of this life-saving work. Visit theanimalalliance.org to find out how you can get involved and make a difference.
The values in the numbers, right? It's the velocity of the relationships.
Yeah,
it's because you have so many of them coming at you so fast, and that there's no way but to win.
Yeah, and the other thing that is really prominent in the event space culture, because most events are trying to sell something at the end of them. They're trying to sell a package into more coaching, into more ticket deals, more whatever. And so, again, this is like the background stuff that nobody wants to say out loud. But here on the Fuel Your Legacy podcast, here it is. Based on psychology, they know that the more familiar you are with them, the more likely you are to buy. So if they can keep you in a room for 2 or 3 days, then by the end of it, you will be sensationalized and familiar enough with them that you're willing to give them your credit card and pay them. Okay, so because they're trying to get a sale of $500, $1,000, $20,000, $30,000 quickly from you, then they need more time up front to build that relationship. And really, it's not building a relationship, in my opinion. It's building a familiarity, which is different than building a relationship. But Absolutely. They're building a familiarity so that they can get access to your credit card, which, again, I'm not faulting anybody. It's just the name of the game in the system. So know what you're walking into. But what's more important, in my opinion, is what if there was no sales pitch at the end? There was just, hey, if you want to meet with me, go for it. Wonderful. Okay. If not, then don't meet with me, right? I'd rather not have you meet with me. So if that's the outcome, then you don't need 4 hours with people. Sorry, you don't need 2 or 3 days. You only need 2 to 3 hours. So now, not only is it a minimum investment money-wise, but it's a minimal investment time-wise. It doesn't take you 3 days to do an event, right? You can say, hey, I'm going to do an event in the morning from this time to this time. You still have the whole rest of the day to go do everything else you need to do. Or I'm going to do it in the evening. You still have the whole day to spend time with your family or do whatever. You don't have to travel. You can travel. I'm traveling for some of my events, but only to help people get these started in this way so that I don't have to travel anymore and they can do it themselves.
Gotcha.
So this goes into the five, like in your spreadsheet here. I say spreadsheet, graph. What do you call it? Anyways, they say the 5-year target and the 3-year picture. The thing that I would do is take this vision and overview. It's wonderful. Take that same vision and overview and supplant it. And rather than a 5-year target, do the 5-week target or the 5-day target. Most people sign up.
I just reading a book recently. It's the 12-week year.
Phenomenal book. Book. Okay. So here's the thing. Most people sign up for an event. This is another thing that if you don't run the event, you don't know when people signed up. You just think everybody just showed up. Most people register for an event in the last 7 days. An event will go from having almost nobody to hundreds of people in some cases in the last 7 days, because that's when they finally decide, I don't have anything next Saturday. Nothing's going to come up. I don't have anything better to do. I'll be there. So if that's the case, then why are we waiting a quarter to build an event? Why not 2 weeks?
Yeah.
If they're going to sign up in the last 2 weeks, why not sign them up in the last 2 weeks and do another event 2 weeks before and another event 2 weeks before? So the things I would change just for this topic and perspective, if you go read his book, his graph makes sense. I'm not tearing apart his graph. Okay. So don't take this the wrong way. Read his book. But in context of this conversation, the 5-year target needs to be a 2-week target. The 3-year picture needs to be like the end of the event picture. And then you have your core values. What is something we all agree on? All of the speakers need to agree on some core values. The core focus. What's the purpose, cause, or passion? And the niche. How are we going to brand it from a niche perspective? What's the marketing strategy? A target list and the list of what are the 3 unique things, the proven process, the guarantee. Okay. All of that you can have built out, and then it's duplicatable. You just put in different people's names, different people's bios, different people's topics. And it's something that just absolutely, the subtitle of the book, you're literally scaling not just your business, but other people's businesses through managing the relationships that you have with those individuals.
No, I got you. That makes a lot of sense, Sam. That never looked at events that way. Of course, that's a business book, but it's like you said, you can easily modify the tools in it for different business models. And so that would be very easy to take that, and you could still talk about the structure you need behind each one of the speakers using some of the same processes.
Yeah, absolutely. He has another graph in here, which again, I'm reading. So I interviewed a guy named Steve Rosenbaum, who we met at this event that we both spoke at, and had him on the podcast a few weeks ago. And he turned me on to this book called The Checklist Manifesto. Okay. If you haven't read it, everybody should go read this book. It talks about the data behind how they were able to start flying bigger airplanes that were super complex, and talk about how they eliminated or significantly reduced infection in hospitals and everything. And it's because they introduced basic checklists for every process. Okay. Now we all fall into this because at some point we realize this is too much for our brain, and we start creating checklists. So Brian created another checklist in chapter 8 of his book. Okay. And it's very simple. Okay. And it's like contract kickoff is what contract kickoff checklist. Okay. But then he goes through all of the different things that you need in a a checklist. Okay. Now, Brian, when you're sitting there and you're going through this and you have this contract checklist, is it your idea that you're going to be in charge of all of those areas?
No. You have a point of contact in each area. You'd have one for your finance. There's steps for your finance office, steps for your contracting office, your subcontracting office, your operations, your security. So it's basically a synchronization checklist for the company to open up a new contract within house.
Absolutely. And so what's cool about this is, again, not all the checklist factors align perfectly, but from a visual, you should go buy his book on Amazon and read it. One, read it, but two, use some of this stuff and take and replace the things that are more applicable to your business. But the process is what matters. The process, right. The system is what Brian is so good at helping, going into your business and helping you create the system that's going to work for you. This is a system as an example that he's putting in his book, but you have a system in your book, like in your company. But what's important is if I'm going to go do an event, I have a checklist very similar, and I pull it up and say, hey, this is what I've discovered is helpful for an event. Everybody look over, again, because I'm collaborating. I'm not controlling the event. I'm collaborating. Everybody look over this. See if there's anything I'm missing. See if there's anything that we could do better or that you feel like has been good in other events that we should do at this event. So then we edit it for that group of people. We make the checklist and then we say, hey, who feels comfortable in these different areas? For me, one of my rules is I don't touch money. So it's a free event if it's up to Sam. If anybody wants to charge, they have to have the charge point. They have to put it into the system. I refuse to take money at an event. Personally, I don't want to be in charge of money. It doesn't serve my purposes. It definitely doesn't help my brand of my company to be transacting in money. I'd rather transact in relationships and reputation. And from a legal perspective, I have certain restrictions due to my career that make it very difficult for me to be in charge of money. And so I just say, no, I'm not doing it. So if somebody else wants to take that part on, more power to you. I'm not coming in expecting to earn any money. But if you go through and you say, hey, who on the team, out of these speakers feels like they could do this area? Then is it even really stressful to put on an event or start a contract or start a company? Or does everybody feel like they can take one bite of the elephant and they're going to be okay?
I think that's key. Because when you divide the task down, it's much easier, as you said, taking a bite of the elephant. So, and one of the things I always do, just like that checklist, and if you see through the thing where I talk about accountability, is we never do anything without somebody having the rose pinned on them. So in this case, in your speaker example, when you get up with the five of you and the five of you agree, then somebody has every vertical or their vertical that they're strong in based on what you're recommending.
Right.
Which means you just have a better event that way too, because everybody's playing to the piece of the event that's to their strength.
Yeah. And nobody feels like it's their event or nobody feels like they're a guest at somebody else's event. So everybody's assertive and operates as if it's their event.
That's right. That's right. So therefore, you're not worried about a piece of it being let down because it's their event. Then they would be personally embarrassed about if they didn't fulfill their roles that they signed up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So this is I'm on a warpath to help change the way that speakers think of themselves when they show up at an event. Because the reality is, I've been doing events for 8 years, speaking at lots of events, and putting events on. And the consistent issue is that speakers show up, for better or worse, right? And there's no accusations, they're just realities. Speakers show up expecting a room to be full, and speakers will show up expecting a room to be full, and they'll dip out early if they don't see the number of people that they think should be in that room. But when you ask them, how many people did you bring? Almost always it's like, oh, I brought my +1 free ticket. Why? Why didn't you bring 10 people? Well, I wasn't sure what the event was going to be. I wasn't sure how it was going to be. Well, you're speaking. Are you sure about what you're going to say? Is there value in what, if you're not sure about the value you're going to offer, then why should we even let you be here?
I like it.
You don't want 10 people to come and listen to you speak? Well, all my friends already know what I do. Okay, wonderful. But you didn't bring anybody for anybody else to hear. So you want to rape somebody else's market, but you don't want to offer up yours? This is where relationship and trust you have to have with the people in the room.
Yeah.
So anyways, I love what I've read of your book. I really think that everybody should go read this book because although it's written, just remind them what your actual history is, like your actual profession. I say that in funny quotes, like he's a very dynamic person.
So the book is actually written because I do consulting and building of small and mid-sized businesses. So I'm taking companies that have reached really a stagnated stage in their business. Because when they're young and entrepreneurial with one or two people, you can't come in as a consultant because they need every penny they can to make the business work. But once they get it off the ground, they need somebody sometimes to come in and look at it with them and give them some professional, advice on ways they can get it ready, shaped to go to the next step. Or they can either stair step to the next step or can hockey stick to the next step. Mm-hmm. And they're scaling is both. Some people think the hockey stick's the only way, but stair stepping is still just as important because you still want to get to the next level. You want to go from the 250,000 to the 500,000 to the 1.5 million to the 5 million, and you work your way up. And then, of course, over my career, I've went from zero as my own startup to where I've managed up to $400 million. In an international division. So I've seen many stages. I tell people a lot of the time, I know where I need to get out of the way and let things happen, which is why I like checklists and I like to hold people accountable because it's much easier for me to have the professional that's supposed to do that job, be accountable for that, and back brief me or either I tell them what I need. So, and one of the things I run into with CEOs or executives is sometimes they don't know when they've reached their capacity to get out of the way to let the business take off to the next level. And I think sometimes when owners realize that or executives realize that, the coaches really help them, and things like the R factor become very valuable to them to move to that next level.
Yeah, because essential in every relationship is trust. Or, I mean, you could use the word confidence as well. I think in many respects they're synonymous, but there are definitely times where I have more confidence in somebody than I do trust in them, and vice versa. More trust in somebody that I know is not confident in fulfilling a role, but I still trust them with certain information. So.
Yeah, no, I use relationship in the book is about being at least an acquaintance with the people that you're working with, right? You may not be BFFs, but the challenge is, I say it, you don't have to be the person that gets the second person to get the picture of the baby when it's born, but maybe you at least get the email that, hey, I just had my baby. Mm-hmm. Because it's key both in the business for people to talk about where there's problems, and both for your customers and for your vendors. So when there's problems both in your supply chain and in your delivery. So therefore, but if you're not communicating to the people you're buying from and selling to, or the people that are, in this case, you said the 5 people that are going to deliver this event with you, there's got to be some communication. And sometimes if you label something communication, people just think it's talking. Mm-hmm. Well, it's much more than talking when I talk about relationships. It's much more the content and the context.
Sure.
So that we can talk to each other and not past each other or just to each other.
Right. And I was just going to say in the event context that we're talking about, and I actually think this applies to all business. The best business leaders I know, they walk into a room and you probably wouldn't even know that they're the leader. As in, they're there to learn and listen probably 80% of the time, and actually only talk and instruct 20% of the time. They're there to glean and connect with people. And I think that too often, if in the event space, if everybody respects that, hey, this is our event and nobody's opinion is more important than the other, then there's no demeaning, there's no talking down to, because it's just like, okay, well, how do we become goal focused and vision focused about how do we accomplish the vision rather than who's right or who's wrong. And right. That's crucial in any company, right? Just like you said, the main thing that people struggle with, or not the main thing, but oftentimes these leaders, they don't know when to get out of the way and just let the vision take the vision, let the vision happen. They're so stuck in the way thinking that they need to be in charge of the vision. And it's like, no, everybody's got the vision. Just let them go effectuate it. Stop trying to drive the vision. They already got it. Let's just go. Get out of the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're onto that. I mean, Sam, I think that's most of the time, like you said in the event, and I even talk about this in the book, in the chapter on communication, 2-2-1. I don't know if you've read that part yet, but 2-2-1, right? We got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. So we should be capturing 80% more than we're speaking. Mm-hmm. And if we do that as an individual, either at an event or in business, and we're always absorbing data, the mind is a great thing, right? It'll process a lot of stuff. We have a lot of sensory data coming to us other than just what we see or just what we hear. That's why I love having meetings in person a lot more than Zoom, because there's a whole lot of things that are going on in a room that you can see when you're together. That's why I don't even mind most of my meetings being, I say, let's go break some bread or have a cup of coffee, because there's a lot of times you can really get to the root cause, or you can get to kind of how to solve problems, because people get relaxed when they start communicating.
Yeah. So. And you get to know people a lot better in different scenarios, rather than just like in a very controlled environment where it's like there's no distractions. So I like being in an environment. I like being where there's no distractions sometimes, but I also love being with people and seeing them interact with other people, seeing them interact with people that are potentially annoying them, their children. Like, how does this expose who this person is? And then do I like who this person is or not? And and those are all factors that I think really, really play into the R factor, the relationship, building that relationship, maintaining that relationship. Well,
yeah, I had a boss one time, Sam, just because I know we're running out of time, but one of the things he told me, he said, I got a staff with 150 people and I can work here 60 hours a week. He says, well, we can all go out and have drinks and dinner on Friday night for about an hour, and I'll learn more about what's going on in that hour than in all the staff meetings and meetings we've had for the whole week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I believe so. And I think that for me, that is a big part of my life, my business, is I want to build those relationships and have that connection, whether it's in person or on Zoom. I prefer in person, like you do. I suffer through Zoom most of the time, but I prefer if I can give you a hug, if I can see you, hear you,
absolutely,
smell you, whatever. Like, I'd rather all of that than not know you. And so I think that's all huge. Where do people find you? Because we are out of time now, but where do people find you if they want to get the book? Where is it? Also, if they want to,
so if you want to get to me, so on my website, www.brianlkent.com, and there's a link to the book there, or you can go to Amazon, The R Factor by Brian L. Kent. That's where you can get the book. But if you want to get to me, and then on the contacts page, I have a drop down. If you want consulting, training, or mentoring, there's a drop down. You can pick what you want to talk about or what you think we need to set up a meeting for. And somebody on my staff will get back with you, or I will. I'll read all of those myself. And we move forward from there.
Awesome.
So www.brianlkent.
I love it. Hey, Brian, thank you so much for taking time to come back on. I really was excited to have this conversation after I was able to make it through some of your book and look through it. So much knowledge, so much ability to take what you have and put it into any industry. I hope you do more events. Honestly,
I will.
Like, go start one, do it, pick a day, time, location. And that's, if you need help or you want help, I want you to win. So I'll help you.
Sounds good, Sam. All right, buddy. Well, you have a great day.
Yep, you too. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Spay and neuter to save lives. This is the mission of the Animal Alliance. Every year, millions of pets are euthanized due to overpopulation. Help us change that. Visit theanimalalliance.org to learn more about our efforts and how you can support us. Together, we can give every pet a chance at life. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.